The narrative begins as a guy informs the strange chameleon band members that they're going to make their big-time debut and gives them props, declaring it's official. The band members get pumped, and one of them thinks that 10 years have gone by since they started, but this moment is finally here. However, the guy says there's one requirement. He wants Toru Shibakusa, the drummer, to split from the band right away. Shibakusa is left dumbfounded by this news, praying it's just a cruel joke. But the guy quickly shuts down any hope of that, telling Shibakusa there's no funny business here. He goes on to explain that bands like Strange Chameleon need drummers with top-notch skills to keep up. With a touch of sass, he pats the lad on the shoulder and bluntly states that he's just not cutting it. Shibakusa reflects that he hasn't been idle during practice sessions. He's been putting in effort, but it's true he doesn't possess extraordinary talent. Numerous drummers surpass him in skill. The lad then approaches Yusuke, the band's leader, seeking his perspective. Shibakusa asks Yusuke for his thoughts on the matter, suggesting that as leader, Yusuke's disapproval could nullify the condition. Yusuke responds that if the band aims to advance, this decision is unavoidable. This revelation leaves Shibakusa feeling disheartened and taken aback. He thinks it's really unfair. Yusuke says that there are many songs they want to play, but the drumming style is holding them back. If they want to move forward, letting him go is necessary. Shibakusa replies sadly, pointing out that Yusuke never mentioned this before. He says it's all wrong and tries to talk to the other band members, but they stay quiet. He wonders why none of them speak up. The producer calls him a poor sport, asking if he's trying to spoil the new start for the others. The word spoil shocks him, and the fact that no one defends him makes it clear his departure was already decided. He believes they must have secretly planned this behind his back. He wonders if it was Yusuke, the producer, or someone more influential who came up with the idea. At this point, further resistance is pointless. He gathers his belongings and heads towards the door. As he exits, he overhears the other band members discussing the confirmation of their major debut. He thinks to himself that they'll handle the band's future without him. He's aware that the group leader had hoped for everyone to succeed together, without anyone being left out. As he steps out, he thinks that the others are likely relieved to have achieved their debut and gotten rid of him as a liability. He recalls the band's formation in high school, when Yusuke invited him to join Strange Chameleon. From that moment on, band activities consumed almost every day, and he strived to match Yusuke's talent. Despite the hard work, it was all exciting and satisfying, and the band's fame slowly grew as their fan base increased. Before long, they began receiving invitations to larger concerts and events, and a major debut seemed within reach. However, that dream was suddenly shattered, and looking at a photo now brings back a flood of memories. He tears the photo apart, overwhelmed by emotions. The TV plays in the background, surrounded by empty cans and scattered papers, as he sits on the floor, head on knees, feeling sorrowful. Meanwhile, a news anchor's voice fills the room, discussing a trending rock band, a stark contrast to his own situation. Shibakusa doesn't want to listen to the news, so he puts in his earphones and decides to enjoy some music, seeking a distraction from his thoughts. As he starts playing tracks, he finds himself thinking about his beloved singer, Shigure Narahara, who recently dropped an album that he's been eager to listen to. He searches for it and starts listening to the songs, letting her soothing voice wash over him. Her voice is super clear, and he feels a sense of calm as he listens. As a huge fan, he's always been impressed by her talent, and her music videos and streaming numbers are indeed super high in Japan. It's no surprise, given her incredible popularity, that every time she releases a new song, related keywords dominate the trends. She's worked with tons of brands and commercials, and these days you can't avoid hearing one of her songs. Compared to her, Shibakusa feels like a tiny star in a vast universe, and it's a huge contrast to his own situation, especially since he got cut just before their launch. This contrast makes him think back to their coincidental meeting in high school, where they ended up in the same club. Although they only chatted once, he was blown away by her presence, and before he knew it, she'd left school and debuted as a singer, achieving success rapidly. Even in high school, she had a special aura that left a lasting impression on him. He feels like she's living in a world far beyond his own, and he wonders what it would be like to be in her shoes. As he reflects on his own life, he realizes he's taken a different route, one that's led him to this moment. The lyrics catch his attention, lines about turning back time and starting over. He glances at his phone, startled by how closely the song mirrors his thoughts. The regret, the longing, it all hits home. Gripping his shirt, he feels as if the words speak directly to his heart. It surprises him that someone like her, who seems so put together, could feel this way too. Somehow that comforts him. He's not alone. Looking at her picture, he feels a small sense of solace, and he thinks that only she can heal his broken heart. As he gazes at her image, his eyes drift to the TV screen, where a news anchor is reporting that the popular singer might have taken her own life, and he's shocked by the news. His eyes widen in stunned silence as he hears the news, and he hastily removes his earphones to listen more intently. The news anchor repeats the announcement that popular singer Shigure Narahara was found lifeless near her apartment building and was declared dead at the hospital. It's believed she fell from her apartment. He's still reeling from the news, struggling to accept that she's truly gone. He wonders if this must be some kind of error, but then questions why it would be. He thinks about whether the fall was accidental or intentional. In his dazed state, he can't fathom her taking her own life. He recalls the song lyrics and his reaction, thinking about how even someone like her could feel vulnerable. He asks himself if that's really possible. With a heavy heart, he places his hand on the table and thinks that maybe none of it matters now. He lies down on the bed, feeling drained, and says he's exhausted. As he stands up, he's reminded of his own situation, getting kicked out of the band he would have been in for 10 years, and now his only source of solace, his beloved singer, is gone. He then unlocks the window of his flat, preparing to leap out. Just before doing so, he reflects that if he were to go through with it now, most people would likely assume he was following Shigure Narahara in death, and truthfully, that wouldn't be an incorrect assumption. His mind lingers on the lyrics of "Re, a raw cry," drenched in hopelessness, defying a cruel reality. With that thought, he leaps from the window, hoping this might be his chance to reset everything, to begin again. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself lying in a room. He wonders if he has been dreaming. As he glances around, he notices things like posters and a shelf packed with books, all strangely familiar. Then it hits him. This is his old bedroom in his childhood home. Taken aback, he mutters to himself, questioning why he's at his family's house. Had he gotten drunk the night before? His recollection is hazy. Reaching for his phone to check the time, he freezes, stunned to see an outdated model. He briefly wonders whose phone it is before setting that aside and simply looking at the time. As he glances at the time, he notices it's morning, but when he checks the date, April 3rd, he's stunned, thinking that yesterday was still August. His bewilderment grows when he hears his mother's voice calling out to him, urging him to get up and telling him that breakfast is ready. He responds that he's on his way. When he catches a glimpse of himself in the mirror, he's startled and examines his hair, wondering if it really grew that much in such a short span. His mother's voice calls out again, asking if he's awake now. He opens the door, heads downstairs, and is greeted by his mother and sister, who welcome him to the breakfast table. His mother encourages him to eat quickly, mentioning that his father has already left the house. His sister inquires if he's going to be late on his second day of school. He notices his mother, youthful and free of gray hair, his sister in her school uniform, and the family dog, alive and well, despite having died 8 years ago. He's stunned, wondering if time has somehow reversed, sending him back to his high school days. As disbelief washes over him, he pinches his cheek, trying to process what's happening. The question echoes in his mind, is this a dream? But when his mother and sister glance at him with curious expressions, he realizes this is reality. The realization hits him hard, and he begins to question his next move. Should he return to his old life or carve a new path? As doubt gives way to possibility, he clenches his fist, feeling a surge of hope. Memories of the band, the struggles, and the pain resurface, but this time he sees a chance to change it all. He now knows starting the band with Yushike was where it all began to unravel, and this is his chance to do it differently. Determined not to repeat the same mistakes, he feels a new sense of purpose. This time, he'll go to school, make different choices, maybe go solo or team up with someone like Shigure Narahara. At the bus station, Shibakusa stands in awe, overjoyed to be back in his high school days. As he takes in the familiar surroundings, his eyes land on a familiar face, Noguchi, one of his closest friends from that time, walking toward him with a cheerful greeting. A wave of nostalgia washes over Shibakusa as memories come flooding back. Noguchi cheering at their band's live shows, buying their self-produced CDs, always supportive. He remembers him as a genuinely good guy. But the moment is interrupted when Noguchi gives him a puzzled look, clearly noticing something off. Concerned, he asks if Shibakusa is okay. He laughs it off, saying he's just happy to see him again, though Noguchi remains skeptical and even jokes that he might need to see a doctor. As they chat, their small talk feels comfortingly familiar, bringing back the easy rhythm of their high school days. Then the conversation shifts. Noguchi asks if Shibakusa has decided on a club to join. Before hearing an answer, he admits that he's torn, unsure which direction to go. Shibakusa presses for details, so Noguchi reveals he's stuck between the literature club and the science club. Our lad is surprised by the contrast. He nods in understanding, noting that if he's going to join something, he'll want to fully commit. Not being the athletic type like Shibakusa, Noguchi wonders aloud what he would choose in his place. Shibakusa teases him, asking if he's trying to put pressure on him. That question triggers a memory. This exact exchange had happened 10 years ago. Smiling at the déjà vu, Shibakusa knows if he answers just as he did back then, he'd choose the science club. His friend would choose the literature club, staying true to his contrarian nature. Shibakusa remembers how that choice hadn't turned out well for Noguchi. He'd gone through a tough time there, breaking up with a girlfriend from the club and ending up alone by his third year. With no juniors or active members, he'd often described the experience as dull and isolating. Thinking back, Shibakusa recalls telling Noguchi back then that he should have chosen the science club instead, but he refused to listen. Shibakusa wonders, if he chose literature instead of science this time, would Noguchi still go against him and end up in the science club instead? If so, maybe he'd avoid the struggles he faced last time in the literature club. With that in mind, he casually suggests that literature might actually suit him better. But just as expected, the moment he says it, Noguchi's interest fades a little, and true to form, he chooses the science club instead. With a sheepish smile, he thanks Shibakusa for the advice, even as he goes against it. Shibakusa reassures him with a wink, indicating that he's neutral about the choice. Meanwhile, Shibakusa reflects that his suggestion seems to have had an impact on Noguchi's decision, meaning his choice has indirectly influenced his friend's path. He doubts whether he's made the right move by influencing Noguchi's future for personal reasons. Glancing at his friend, he considers the possibility that things could spiral out of control. Shibakusa rationalizes that since he's here to alter the future, he can always make tweaks if things don't pan out. If fear holds him back, he'll end up with the same unfavorable outcome. So he decides to take action and make a positive difference, even if it's just a small step. If the future takes a wrong turn, he'll step in again to guide it towards a better path. With that thought, he gives Noguchi a reassuring pat on the back, internally reflecting that choosing the science club is a solid choice. Noguchi looks at him with a spark of excitement, mentioning that the science club might have some attractive girls in lab coats, thanks to the current science girl trend. Shibakusa raises an eyebrow, questioning if that's really his motivation. Noguchi just smiles, insisting that youth and romance are inseparable. Shibakusa gives him a playful wink, reminding him that he used to have a soft spot for literary girls. Noguchi's eyes widen in surprise, clearly caught off guard, and he wonders how Shibakusa knows that he doesn't remember ever mentioning it. Realizing his mistake, Shibakusa quickly downplays it, saying he might have confused it with someone else's story. Noguchi grins and teases him, suggesting he might just be jealous. With a mischievous glint in his eye, he invites Shibakusa to join the science club with him. Shibakusa laughs and declines, explaining that he's already got his eye on the light music club. There's someone he wants to play music with, someone he doesn't mention just yet. Noguchi, curious, asks who it is, but Shibakusa only gives a sly smile in response. With a friendly squeeze on the arm, Noguchi tells him that drums really do suit him. After class, Shibakusa reflects on how school has kicked off, and he's been anticipating this moment. He recalls that in his previous loop, he had a forgettable chat and didn't take any initiative. He rushes to the light music club, resolved to handle things differently this time and leave a lasting impression. He aims to establish a strong connection with her and collaborate on a band project. As he arrives at the club entrance, he notices Shigure Narahara and is struck by her delicate, glass-like hair that seems fragile. Looking at her, he thinks that describing her as ethereal feels almost too obvious, but that initial impression persists even after 2 cycles of life. She inquires if he's affiliated with the light music club, and he responds by offering his hand and proposing a band partnership. This sudden invitation catches her off guard, and she declines, appearing startled. He acknowledges that his approach is unconventional, given their lack of familiarity. He glances at her and reminds himself that his objective is to behave differently than he did previously. He smiles and says, "Too bad," as he had hoped to start a band with someone who'd attend club meetings even on their days off. which sparks her curiosity. She looks puzzled and asks if club activities are suspended today, and he grins, replying that every Wednesday is a hiatus. This prompts her to ask about him, and he explains that he's not an official club member yet. He points to his green-striped shoes, proof that he's a first-year like her. She looks even more confused, so he adds with a smile, "If someone's motivated enough to show up on their day off, that's the kind of person I want to work with." He mentions that he plays the drums and asks if she'd like to join forces, but she declines, saying she's not interested in partnering with a drummer. She explains that she just wants to sing solo, which makes him light up with excitement as he says that's all the more reason they should form a band together. She's a vocalist. However, his expression turns gloomy as he asks why she's so opposed to the idea, and she reveals that she dislikes bands, walking away. As she disappears from view, he calls out behind her, asking why she dislikes bands, thinking to himself that he's never encountered someone who dislikes bands before. As she informs him it's not his concern and she's heading out, she dismisses his question with a brief sorry, leaving him with more questions than answers. She requests that he approach someone else for his band, which prompts him to try to catch up to her. He shouts behind her that she's into the light music club, and he's eager to work together, hoping to spark a connection. Observing that she's hastening her pace, he wonders if she'll even recall his name, but he's determined to make a better impression than their stilted small talk previously. Intrigued by her firm resistance to joining a band, he realizes he must get to the bottom of her hesitation. With this in mind, he exits the area, resolved to confront her again directly, having a notion about where she might be headed. As he remembers that a music magazine from Shigure, Narihara's debut, mentioned she often skipped school during high school, he recalls that she regularly performed solo street gigs in the shopping district. This information leads him to believe that if he wants to find her, searching the shopping district is a logical plan. However, the fact that she stopped attending the light music club starting today adds a sense of urgency to his search. This prompts him to decide that he'll have to go look for her himself. When he checks his mobile phone, he discovers that the shopping district is a fairly large area, which makes his search more challenging. To narrow down his search, he'll start by looking around the middle school she used to attend. He acknowledges that, as a former fan of hers, he knows which middle school she attended, but from an outside perspective, this could be perceived as overly intense behavior, so he needs to tread carefully. With this in mind, he begins inquiring with students about the shopping district, but one of them tells him they don't really frequent that area much. Shibakusa mentions that it would be fantastic if there was a spot where someone could do street performances, which sparks the student's curiosity. Upon hearing the term street performance, the student asks if he's planning to perform on the street and inquires if he can play guitar or something similar. Shibakusa clarifies that he's not looking to perform himself, but rather searching for someone. As a girl there mentions that Ishimoto-san might know the shopping district best, since it's her neighborhood, Shibakusa's excitement grows. He approaches Ishimoto and asks if she indeed knows the area well. Ishimoto reluctantly confirms that the shopping district is near her place and provides him with directions. Armed with this new information, he heads to the shopping district and starts exploring. Upon observing the area, he notices that it's quite old and most of the shops are shuttered, with a noticeable lack of people around. Despite the apparent lack of leads, he continues his search, driven by determination. Feeling a bit disheartened by the desolate atmosphere, he thinks it's unlikely he'll find her right away. However, his spirits lift when he hears the sound of a guitar and her enchanting voice singing. He quickly follows the sound and catches up to her. As he listens to her song, he recognizes it as her original piece, Shigure, a melody that will one day become a massive hit single, selling millions of copies. Recalling his past obsession with her music, he remembers listening to this song thousands of times, and even now, it still sends shivers down his spine. As she concludes her song, he applauds with enthusiasm and praises her talent with sincere appreciation. Meeting her gaze, she asks about his presence, inquiring what brings him to the area. He responds with a friendly smile, saying he stumbled upon her performance and was captivated by her lovely voice. With interest, he asks if she often sings there. However, her demeanor turns frosty, and she tells him it's none of his concern, asking him to leave if he doesn't need anything. Her voice trembles with sadness as she mentions that no one seems to appreciate her music. He responds with a kind smile, assuring her that he's genuinely enjoying her performance. She questions his sincerity, and he replies with charm, saying he's always serious about things that matter. Her expression remains melancholic, and she seems unconvinced. He reflects on the contrast between her captivating songs and her defensive reaction. As she packs up her belongings, he asks if she's ending her performance early. She simply states that she's heading home. He requests another song, playfully teasing that she can't possibly be satisfied with just one performance. She accuses him of being persistent in a playful manner. Dropping to his knees, he pleads with her, expressing his genuine admiration for her talent and begging for one more song. But she runs away after saying next time. As she reflects on their encounter, Narahara feels puzzled by him and can't quite figure him out, particularly recalling his enthusiastic expression when he was begging for another song and showering praise on her music. The next day, our MC's thoughts are preoccupied with her, and he wonders how he still managed to connect with her even if her reaction wasn't great. He ponders how to turn their encounter into an opportunity to form a band. His distant expression catches his friend's attention, who asks what's on his mind so early in the morning. He's still thinking about her, and a smile creeps onto his face as he thinks about the possibility of her singing again, particularly as she said next time. Noguchi looks at him, perplexed, wondering if he's really troubled by something. The interruption is soon followed by a girl who approaches him and asks if she can have a quick word with him. Recognizing her, he asks if she's Ishimoto-san. She nods and reminds him they spoke briefly the day before, asking if he remembers. He does, recalling that she mentioned the shopping district. Thanking her for the help, he tells her he found the place he was looking for. She then asks if he was with Narahara-san yesterday. This question first shocks him, and then he reluctantly replies affirmatively. Then he asks her if he did something wrong, or if that's a problem or something. Then she asks him. She was just wondering what he was doing with her. Then he says to her, "What does she mean?" He was just listening to Narahara's song. Then with a laugh he mentions that he has been thinking of joining the light music club. He was thinking maybe he could invite Narahara-san to start a band. After hearing this, Ishimoto remarks to him that she's not trying to be mean or anything, but she thinks that Narahara probably does not want to be in a band. He becomes shocked and then asks her furiously if she knows something about Narahara-san hating bands. Then she discloses to him that she actually went to the same middle school as Narahara. They were planning to start a band together back in middle school, but something happened, and it caused the band to fall apart. Because of the trouble back then, she ended up only singing alone after that. Ishimoto begins telling the whole story to Shibakusa, starting with the moment Narahara asks whether the music club is different from the brass band club. Ishimoto informs her that it is a more casual club where she can play various instruments and sing. She then asks if Shiyu-chan has joined any clubs yet and invites her to join the club together. Ishimoto mentions that she has played guitar before and was part of a marching band, thinking it would be great for them to make music together. She adds that it could be really fun. Both of them enroll in the music club. When Narahara showcases her guitar skills at school, everyone praises her talent. One student approaches her, excited that she has joined, saying it's more fun to jam with a skilled player. Later, some girls approach her, asking if she can teach them guitar sometime. As they discuss their music plans, one girl mentions she's struggling to master chords no matter how hard she practices. Another girl asks if Narahara sings and plays guitar at the same time, and she replies that she hasn't started singing yet. With a regular concert approaching, Ishimoto asks Shiyu-chan if she'd like to form a band and perform together. She responds with enthusiasm, saying she's looking forward to trying it out. Her answer delights Ishimoto, who says Narahara has seemed like she's been having an amazing time lately. She's thrilled to have invited her to the music club. Narahara expresses her gratitude with a warm smile. The next day, a lively girl named Akane, Shimizu, joins the group, thanking Ishimoto for the invitation. Ishimoto explains to Narahara that she thought having one more member would be great, so she reached out. Narahara responds with a bright smile, saying it sounds like a great idea. Shimizu, grinning, asks Narahara if this is what they call a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Narahara replies that she's looking forward to it. Shimizu adds that she's always wanted to try playing in a band because it seems incredibly cool. She also claims that her friends are excited to come see her perform. With energy, she proposes they start rehearsing seriously. Ishimoto notes that they first need to decide who will play what. She declares she'll take the drums but asks about the other two. Shimizu eagerly volunteers to play guitar and sing, mentioning with a chuckle that she's been practicing hard and thinks she's pretty good. Then Ishimoto asks if Shiyu-chan might want to try bass. She hesitates, saying she'd actually like to try vocals too, and offers to give it a shot. Shimizu, curious, asks if she can really sing. Ishimoto suggests they listen to both before deciding. Shimizu winks playfully, saying it's only fair. Narahara, a bit unsure, asks what song to sing, and Ishimoto tells her to choose anything. She picks up her guitar, and as she begins, her voice fills the room with a stunning warmth that leaves even Ishimoto in awe. She thinks to herself how incredible Narahara's voice is, far beyond her expectations. After finishing, Narahara modestly says that's about it. Ishimoto walks up, praising her as incredibly talented and asking why she never mentioned her singing before. Narahara humbly says she doesn't think she's that good. Ishimoto showers her with praise, saying she has a real future in music. Narahara downplays it, saying Ishimoto is exaggerating. Then Shimizu suddenly announces she's dropping out of the band. Both Narahara and Ishimoto are shocked by her abrupt decision. Ishimoto asks why, especially since she hasn't even tried singing yet. Shimizu replies that Narahara's voice made her feel inadequate. Ishimoto suggests she try playing bass instead, but Shimizu declines, saying she doesn't have the skill and they should find someone better. With a sigh, she says everyone's expecting a good performance. As Shimizu gets ready to leave, Narahara sincerely offers to play bass if she'll sing. But Shimizu snaps, accusing her of pretending to be supportive just to mock her singing afterward. She adds that Narahara has a bad attitude. Narahara tries to explain, saying her intentions are misunderstood, but Shimizu cuts her off, claiming it's easy to play innocent after the fact. She lashes out, accusing Narahara of faking humility just to gain everyone's approval. Ishimoto tries to step in, but Shimizu, still furious, accuses Narahara of looking down on them while acting modest. She declares she doesn't want to be in a band with someone like that. Narahara, hurt, says she truly wanted to be in a band and denies the accusations. Shimizu calls her a liar and says she'll never forget what happened before storming out. Narahara stands still, visibly saddened. Ishimoto approaches to apologize, but Narahara tells her she did nothing wrong. Ishimoto suggests they find someone else, but for now, they should call it a day. The next day, they invite another girl to join, but she declines, saying she's not confident enough. Both Narahara and Ishimoto try to persuade her, offering to adjust the set list to her strengths and asking her to just join for the concert. She still declines politely but leaves open the possibility of joining in the future. Ishimoto expresses her disappointment and apologizes. She confides in Narahara that finding the right person is harder than expected. Determined, she resolves to keep looking, even outside the club, and suggests they try to recruit a keyboardist. Narahara agrees to continue the search. Meanwhile, Miki asks Shimizu if Narahara is really as bad as she claimed. Shimizu's friend jumps in, saying Narahara mocks Shimizu's singing and likely looks down on Miki too. Shimizu declares she'll never forgive her. Miki glances at Narahara and calls her heartless. Another student adds that it's no surprise she'll end up alone. As Narahara turns, Shimizu sneers, calling it a classic case of pride before the fall. Afterward, Narahara and Mio-chan fail to recruit anyone else. Concerned, Ishimoto says they need to start rehearsing and find members soon. Narahara apologizes, blaming herself. Though Mio reassures her, Narahara insists it's her fault and says maybe she shouldn't have joined the band at all. Eventually, Narahara admits that while she's happy Mio appreciates her singing, she feels like a burden to others. Ishimoto is surprised and comforts her, saying her voice is amazing and anyone who hears it would agree. Narahara thanks her but insists she doesn't need to worry. When Ishimoto asks what she means, Narahara reveals she knows about the offer Mio received to join another band and urges her to accept it, especially since drummers are in high demand. She proposes an alternative, suggesting they perform together using pre-recorded soundtracks, but Narahara refuses. She asserts that spending too much time with her would only make Mio-chan feel overshadowed. Though Ishimoto tries to change her mind, Narahara insists they should part ways and tells her not to be concerned. With a strained smile, Narahara says she genuinely admires Ishimoto's drumming and wants to see her shine. Ishimoto reflects and realizes she's reached a dead end. Clinging to the idea of being in a band with Narahara is only wearing her down. Consumed by guilt, she slowly distances herself. Before long, Narahara quits the club and starts singing alone, away from everyone. After sharing everything, Ishimoto stands before Shibakusa, bowing her head in guilt. He asks, with a heavy expression, if that's why Narahara refuses to join a band. Ishimoto admits it's her fault, if only she had thought it through and invited someone else. Wiping her tears, she says Narahara ended up hating bands because of her. Shibakusa gently tells her not to blame herself so much. She apologizes for getting emotional and pleads with him not to pressure Narahara again. He acknowledges she may be right. Wanting to form a band with Narahara might just be selfish. Yet something about giving up feels wrong. He shares his regret and says he still wants to ask Narahara one more time. Ishimoto warns it's likely hopeless, but he insists unexpected things can happen. If he tries, he believes it's possible. He's determined to bring her back, to prove the doubters wrong, and show that real talent can't be silenced. The next day, Shibakusa returns to the shopping district and spots Narahara standing nearby. He had known he'd find her there. Their eyes meet, and she asks if he's back again. He simply explains how compelled he felt to return. She looks puzzled and admits she doesn't understand his interest in her music, claiming her songs aren't worth listening to. He shakes his head, apologetically insisting he genuinely enjoys what she creates. He then reveals a surprise, a Cajun drum he carried all the way there. Curious, she asks what he's up to, and he invites her into an impromptu jam session. She hesitates, protesting that he doesn't need to go to so much trouble. But he points out he did bring the Cajun, and as a drummer, he instinctively wants to add rhythm. With a reluctant sigh, she allows him to play. He settles in, promising to follow her rhythm and complement, not overpower her. When she begins, he immediately recognizes the song, Shigure, and his eyes light up. The mid-tempo beat showcases the clarity of her voice perfectly. He strikes each beat with care, recalling his time in First Run when he strove to support the music rather than dominate it. His playing is precise and subtle, and Narahara watches with visible respect as the song swells from soft melody into a driving, emotional chorus, her effortless vocals remaining at the forefront. When the song ends, he smiles warmly and asks if she'd like to try another track. She replies that she's probably heading home today, sounding slightly distracted. He gently asks if something's bothering her or if she's unwell, softening his tone with concern. She nods faintly. He realizes jumping straight into a jam might have been too much. Worrying he pushed too hard, he suggests they see each other at the freshman orientation party instead. She mentions she's missed the memo. He fills her in. The seniors plan one after school on Friday. She declines, she's not in the mood. Trying to coax her, he mentions meeting upperclassmen, fellow new students, and maybe enjoying refreshments. She remains unimpressed. Then he teases that there might be delicious desserts, shortcake, rich chocolate cake, perhaps even Mont Blanc. He remembers she used to indulge in Mont Blancs during recording sessions and thinks she must be a fan. She pauses thoughtfully and says she'll think about it. He beams, promising he'll eagerly await her response. At the welcome gathering, Senior Kaoru greets the new students and introduces herself, while crediting Hashida's family for the cakes. The room is full of conversation as students are encouraged to mingle and meet club members, seniors and juniors alike. A new student speaks into the microphone, followed by Yusuke Iwamoto. The moment Shibakusa sees him, he freezes, recalling that Yusuke was the one who ultimately dismissed him from the band. Around Yusuke, students rave over his viral videos and original songs. Some ask if all his music is original. Shibakusa watches, thinking Yusuke's following is already massive, and remembering how he once believed success would come if he stayed loyal to him. But it ended badly. While holding the microphone, Shibakusa considers that with so few drummers around, Yusuke might try to recruit him again. But he has no intention of joining his band. He simply introduces himself as a drummer. Once introductions wrap up, the hosts invite everyone to mingle. Elsewhere, Narahara is quietly enjoying the snacks. Shibakusa approaches, noting that she came after all. She responds that she's only there for the treats. When he asks if she introduced herself, she admits she skipped it. Grinning, he asks if she's made any friends yet, but she bluntly says she's not interested. He chuckles, advising her not to be so rude. She shoots back, questioning his own social skills, and tells him to worry about making his own friends instead. He gently reassures her that she doesn't need to keep her guard up. Eventually, she'll find people she clicks with. Still nibbling on snacks, she says she's heading home once she's done. He asks why she seems so distant. Just then, Yusuke approaches, offers, and asks him to join their band. Shibakusa declines with a polite excuse. Yusuke notes that being in multiple bands is fine. Shibakusa apologizes and insists he's only willing to play with one person who fits, someone else. Then, to emphasize his point, Shibakusa places his hands on Narahara's shoulders and declares in front of Yusuke and the others that she is the only partner he wants. Narahara inwardly thinks she never agreed to any partnership. He takes her hand and leads her away. She asks where they're going. He responds with a smile, back to the shopping district. He still wants to jam with her. She hesitates, questioning how realistic forming a band with her really is, and whether it was okay to decline Yusuke's offer. He reassures her by restating that he can't see himself playing with anyone else. Holding her hand gently, he confesses he doesn't want to recreate the painful ending of his past life. Then softly, "Wouldn't you want to relive our youth together one more time with him?" Narahara smiles slightly, though she admits she doesn't fully understand what he means. Meanwhile, a girl nearby plucks at her guitar while wearing an earpiece, absorbed in her music. Narahara's eyes land on the Mont Blanc cake, and she can't help but express her deep affection for it. She thinks that the subtle sweetness of the chestnut and cream that slowly dissolves in her mouth is utterly captivating. Whenever she buys a Mont Blanc as a snack, she feels an overwhelming sense of joy that lasts throughout the day. As she savors each bite, she thinks that she's so enamored with it that she could happily forego all other food for the rest of her life. The way the flavors melt together is a true delight, and she feels grateful to have discovered this treat. Later, lying in bed, she recalls Shibakusa mentioning the delicious Mont Blanc, and she finds herself drawn to the idea of meeting him again despite her initial reservations. Even knowing she's being enticed, she can't resist the allure of Mont Blanc, just like she's struggling to resist the charm of Shibakusa's invitation. The thought of meeting him again makes her feel uneasy, and she wonders why he's bothering with someone like her. She questions whether he genuinely wants to form a band with her, or if there's something more to his intentions. As she reflects on their previous encounter, she cautions herself not to get her hopes up, fearing the pain of past betrayals and the possibility of not being able to recover if it happens again. The memories of past heartaches still linger, and she's hesitant to open herself up to new experiences. However, the memory of their enjoyable jam session lingers, and she finds herself pondering why something so delightful scares her so much. She wonders if things that bring her joy will always feel this intimidating, or if she's just not used to feeling this way. Determined to break free from her fears, she resolves to change and decides to attend the welcome party without expecting anything. She tells herself she's only drawn in by the promise of Mont Blanc, but deep down, she's hoping for something more. Perhaps it's the chance to reconnect with Shibakusa, or maybe it's the opportunity to rediscover herself. Whatever the reason, she's willing to take a chance and see where things go. Eventually, he succeeds in forming a band with her, comprising just the two of them, with guitar and vocals and drums. Their objective isn't to debut or gain fame, but to recapture the essence of their youth. As he starts to eat his lunch, he thinks to himself that having a bassist would be the perfect addition to their lineup. Just then, one of his friends notifies him that he has a visitor, a stunning girl. It's Narahara, and she requests to speak with him for a moment. He's caught off guard and asks her what's on her mind. The other guys can't help but stare at her, whispering among themselves about her beauty, and some speculate about her relationship with him. She tells him she wants him to join her, and he mentions that he hasn't finished his lunch yet. She suggests he bring it along, and he glances at his friend, who's making a face that looks incredibly intimidating. Although he can't see his friend's face, he can sense the intensity of his friend's gaze. He anticipates the questions his friend might ask him about her, possibly with a touch of insanity. He then decides to accompany her, and they both head to the rooftop. He inquires if it's fine to just head up there with her, and she responds that it's perfectly all right, and nobody's ever gotten upset with her for it. As she invites him to dine with her, a hint of melancholy flickers across her face. He thinks to himself that she could have simply mentioned it from the start, but he smiles and accepts her invitation nonetheless. As they sit down to eat, he notices the sandwiches in her lunchbox and asks if she's the one who made them, impressed by her culinary skills. She responds with a touch of defensiveness, asking if that's something bad, and he reassures her that it's not, admitting that he usually just grabs frozen food. Her curiosity gets the better of her, and she examines his lunchbox, inquiring about the contents. As they eat, he's filled with a sense of wonder, thinking that sharing lunch with his admired person is a scenario he never could have envisioned in his previous life. He gazes at her smiling face, and the difficulties he's faced seem to fade away, replaced by the simple joy of seeing her happy. Suddenly, he's distracted by a strange noise, and he asks her if she's noticed it too. She attributes it to someone familiar, mentioning that the person is likely behind the water tank, and his curiosity is piqued. He asks her about the person's identity, and she reveals that there's indeed someone else up there with them. She mentions that someone's always hanging around, but she's clueless about their identity. He gets up, feeling their special moment together has been spoiled. Despite being there first, he wishes the unknown person would leave them be, if only for today. He decides to investigate and heads behind the water tank to see who's lurking there. As he approaches, the girl turns to him with a fiery gaze, demanding to know what he's after. Her intensity is palpable, and he can't help but notice her bass guitar. He's taken aback, and his surprise is evident. The girl's aggression is fierce, and she snaps at him, asking if he's some kind of teacher's lackey. He tries to defuse the situation, explaining it's not what she thinks, and asks her if she plays bass. She responds with a mix of defiance and scorn, asking if he has an issue with that, and tells him she'll do as she pleases. To his surprise, she says this encounter might actually work to her advantage, and asks him to report it to the teacher. She reveals that she has no intention of attending classes, and warns them to take whatever action they want. Suspension, expulsion, it's all the same to her. He winces at the mention of expulsion and asks her about it, but she shows no concern, saying she's planning to drop out soon anyway. With a dismissive tone, she tells him to leave her alone if he's got the message. With a calm demeanor, he asks her if he's free to leave, but before departing, there's one more question he'd like to pose. He sits down in front of her and inquires about the song she's playing on the bass. She responds with a shrug, saying it's not a big deal and who really cares. He presses on, explaining that his curiosity is piqued because he's part of the light music club, and he thinks he might have some insight into music. He adds that the bass sounds impressive, and it's the kind of instrument often used by well-known punk rockers. She looks at him with a mix of surprise and curiosity, asking if he genuinely knows what he's talking about. She replies that she plays music just to pass the time, and the specific song doesn't matter much to her. She further explains that she enjoys following the bass line of a song, and that's what brings her joy. She says she's just filling time with music since she doesn't have anything better to do. He invites her to jam together after school, explaining that his band is currently in need of a bassist. She turns him down. He tries again, suggesting tomorrow or any day that works for her. She firmly rejects the idea, permanently. He calmly says it's fine if she's not interested. Irritated, she snaps, asking why he's even trying to recruit someone like her, and tells him to find someone more normal. He replies that someone typical would probably be boring. She admits he's probably right but finds his reaction surprising and his comment a little rude. Frustrated, she asks him to leave, saying their conversation is getting on her nerves. He stands up and says he'll come back tomorrow. She grows angry and tells him not to return, shouting that no matter how many times he shows up, she's never going to jam with him. As he approaches Narahara, she comments that he's late, and he apologizes, mentioning that he's come up with an excellent idea. The next day, both he and Narahara arrive at the rooftop with their instruments, and he greets the rude girl with a smile, saying it's been a while since they met the previous day. She barely cracks a smile and asks if he's serious. He explains that he figured she wouldn't show up even if invited, so they decided to prepare everything themselves to save time. The girl responds that it's a waste of effort, but she's just passing the time anyway. Narahara shows her a notebook and asks which song she'd like to play, mentioning they have a few options. The girl responds rudely, asking if they can't just assume she's not joining. He points out that she's gone to the trouble of coming here, so wouldn't she play? She tells them to stop pretending they don't know the answer, as it's really annoying. She makes it clear that no matter what they do, she's not playing with them. Narahara and Shibakusa exchange a look and then start playing a song. The girl with a rough demeanor feels entertained and starts jamming on the bass with them. Afterward, he teases her, saying didn't she claim she wouldn't play? She becomes self-conscious and embarrassed, and he says with a grin that it seems she did want to play after all. In her defense, she claims it was just an automatic response. Narahara then praises her with a smile, saying her bass skills are impressive. He asks for her thoughts, mentioning they've booked time in the club room after school. She inquires again if she's really supposed to attend, and he replies that maybe they should just use the rooftop as their new practice spot, so she wouldn't have to inconvenience herself. She becomes irritated, but her defenses drop, and she agrees to join them. He thanks her, and she mutters that she's been dragged into this by some eccentric person. Shibakusa points out that they haven't introduced themselves properly yet, so he introduces Narahara as the vocalist and then himself. The girl presents herself as Risa Kadaoka. When he refers to her as Kadaoka-san, she departs, instructing him to avoid using her surname since she doesn't appreciate it. He offers an apology, and she responds that it's all right, mentioning they'll meet again after school. As she leaves, Narahara remarks that it's fantastic, but he appears preoccupied. She inquires about what's bothering him, and he replies that nothing's amiss. Nevertheless, he's actually pondering the name Risa Kadeoka, which seems familiar to him. He recalls hearing it at his high school reunion in the future, where a friend mentioned encountering her at a hostess club. His friend was surprised Shibakusa hadn't known her, but explained that they were in separate classes during their second year. The friend found it astonishing that a classmate had become a hostess, but what really struck him was her vacant, lifeless gaze. He also overheard her murmuring about wanting to die. His friend revealed that she once talked about wanting to end her life. Shibakusa asked why she'd say something so serious. The friend explained she was overwhelmed by problems, getting caught smoking in high school, dropping out, and eventually cutting ties with her family after a major fallout. When Shibakusa asked if she was just a rebellious teen, the friend said it wasn't that simple. At the core of it all, it seemed, was the band she had once been in, much like Shibakusa. Apparently, she played bass in a band that was quite popular and well-established, although he couldn't recall the name. However, he suggested that maybe Shibakusa might remember it if they had performed at the same live venue or something similar. Shibakusa replied that a female bassist alone wasn't exactly enough to identify her. Then Shibakusa asked his friend if her working at a hostess club meant she had left the band. His friend clarified that it was more accurate to say she was ousted. His friend explained that she claimed her bandmates had betrayed her. Shibakusa inquired what he meant by her being betrayed. His friend told him that apparently someone had approached her band with a debut offer. Shibakusa added that it was a significant opportunity that they had landed an offer like that. His friend revealed that the person behind the deal had massive expenses, including costs for training and gear for the launch, which seemed fishy from the beginning. But it turned out to be a total swindle, and she was left with nothing but financial woes. To make things even tougher, she had taken out a loan to cover the entire sum for herself and the rest of the group, probably because she was eager to make it big with the band and prove herself to her family. It's likely she had a lot on her plate, both financially and emotionally. What really angered his friend was that the band members were complicit in the scam, which made it even more appalling. His friend further explained that the band members and the person behind the deal were in cahoots, and they ripped her off. When Shibakusa heard this, he was stunned and disheartened, saying he couldn't believe people could be so heartless. His friend's expression also turned somber as he mentioned that her family was apparently affluent, which made the situation even more heartbreaking. He thought one of the band members must have been really desperate for cash, and that's why they went along with the scam. Shibakusa added that it was incredibly cruel, and his friend continued, saying that in the end, the money Risa had hoped to earn from launching never materialized. To make matters even worse, her last resort, her family, refused to even hear her out, leaving her with no one to turn to. In the end, she was forced to leave the band and work nights to make ends meet. Shibakusa feels a deep sadness upon hearing her story, and he says it is unbearable and incredibly harsh. His friend apologizes for bringing it up during their reunion, saying it has been weighing on his mind and he needs someone to talk to. He then tells Shibakusa not to let something like that happen to him and expresses his support. After the reunion, Shibakusa couldn't shake off the thought of Risa's story, wondering if there is a way she could have avoided her situation. At present, he gets lost in thought for a while, but Risa interrupts his reverie by saying she shows up like she said she would. He smiles and thanks her for coming. Over the next week, Risa keeps showing up to their jam sessions. After one session, Shibakusa compliments her bass playing, genuinely impressed. She brushes it off, insisting there are plenty of players better than her. He pushes back, assuring her he means it. She's really talented. Curious, he turns to Narahara, asking if she agrees, but her expression catches his attention. When he asks if something's bothering her, she quietly replies it's nothing. Still convinced of Risa's skill, especially knowing her background in a well-known band, he invites her to join the light music club, pointing out that she already has the chops and would fit in perfectly. Risa turns down the offer, worried she might disrupt the group or not be welcomed. Shibakusa assures her the club is friendly and full of talented musicians like her, and says both she and Narahara would fit right in. He adds that the club's energy suits Narahara too. Still hesitant, Risa repeats she doesn't want her past to cause problems. Shibakusa then bluntly asks if she's into anything shady, like drugs or smoking, referencing her past issues. Risa gets upset, denying any such involvement and expressing her distaste for smoking. She's probably also biologically prone to being vulnerable to booze, a Upon hearing this, he infers she's averse to cigarettes. Risa then proposes moving on to the next tune, saying there's no benefit to squandering resources. Narahara inquires what song they should perform next. Risa responds, asking if they have something a bit more energetic. He reflects that everyone has their own personal struggles or issues they'd rather keep private. As they exit the club, it's utterly dark outside. Risa expresses gratitude to both of them, saying she had an amazing time. Narahara beams and agrees, saying she enjoyed herself too. Shibakusa thinks to himself that Risa has a sincere and genuine side beneath her tough facade. He notes that despite her rough exterior, she's more multifaceted than she appears. It seemed like Risa was doing things on purpose, which caught Shibakusa's attention. As they wrapped up, Narahara pointed out a sleek, expensive car nearby. Shibakusa wondered if it was picking someone up. They glanced at Risa, who said she had fun jamming but had to go. Shibakusa sensed something was off, and Narahara noted Risa had been acting strange. As Risa walked to the car, they assumed it belonged to her family. The window rolled down, and a man shouted, blaming them for making Risa late. To their shock, he introduced himself as her father. Clearly upset, he said he couldn't let Risa waste time on music when she had more important things to focus on. She stood silently as he told Shibakusa to stop involving her. After that, Risa vanished. No more rooftop jams, club meetings, or hangouts. While they jam, Narahara asks if he's still thinking about Risa. He admits her sudden departure still unsettles him. Narahara relates, saying she's come to enjoy being in the band with him, something she didn't expect. It's fun with just the two of them, she says, but even more exciting when Kadoka joins in. He remembers how Narahara once looked down on the band, her face gloomy. Now she says she wants to perform with Risa again. He agrees without hesitation. He feels the same. He proposes that they head directly to Risa's father's office, as they don't know her home address. However, he shows Narahara his phone, where he's looking up Risa's father's profile, and she's astonished to learn that he's a public figure. Specifically, he's a sitting prefectural assembly member, and he suspects that with overwhelming popular support, he's likely to become the next governor in the upcoming election. As he recalls the previous night's encounter, it clicks. He's seen that face before. Upon learning she was from a prominent family, he conducted some research just in case. Narahara remarks that it's quite unexpected, never imagining Risa would be the daughter of a future governor. He agrees, saying they never would have guessed Risa's dad was a politician. He reflects on Risa, thinking she's supposed to be impeccably behaved, so her actions must be a form of rebellion. He believes they need to find a way to persuade Risa's dad. He tells Narahara they just have to do it, no excuses. Afterward, they find themselves standing outside Risa's dad's office. Shibakusa comments to Narahara that the office is impressive, guessing that's what you'd expect from a high-ranking official. Then she inquires if he thinks Risa will be all right. He gazes at her and comforts her, saying everything will be fine. He vows to Risa that he'll get her back and instructs Narahara to stay outside while he talks to Risa's father. He steps forward, determined to persuade Risa's father on his own if necessary. Narahara intercepts him, insisting she'll accompany him because she wants Risa to rejoin them. Together, they ring the doorbell. A woman's voice asks who's at the door, and they respond that they're there to meet with Kataka Hidetsugu, explaining they're friends of Risa's. The door swings open, and they're both taken aback by Risa's appearance, inquiring about her hair. Risa touches her hair and brushes off the question. In a curt tone, she demands to know their business and warns them not to say they'd come to fetch her. Narahara explains that they simply want to jam with her again. Risa shrugs it off, saying it won't make a difference. Shibakusa challenges Risa's assertion, saying it's not necessarily true, and he's still skeptical when it comes to her. They'll just have to bring her around. Risa's father arrives, and Risa's expression changes. He comments that it appears they'd come to discuss Risa. Shibakusa addresses Risa's father with honor, saying he really wants to talk to him about something. Her father responds that he's pressed for time, but he'll give him a hearing. As a public figure, it's not his habit to dismiss others' perspectives. He leads them inside and invites them to take seats. Shibakusa is straightforward, requesting that he allow Risa to play music with them. Her father flatly refuses, and Shibakusa insists he won't leave until he understands the reasoning behind it. Shibakusa thinks that in a test of wills, he's in his element, considering all the hours he's spent waiting in line for band merchandise. Her father then reveals that Risa will be studying abroad, likely this autumn, and apologizes for the news. Narahara and Shibakusa are both stunned upon hearing that Risa will be heading overseas for her studies. Shibakusa inquires why, and her father responds that it's because he wants Risa to follow a predictable path. Narahara asks Hidetsugu-san to clarify what he means by a life that stays on rails. He explains that as part of his philosophy, he believes Risa should lead a highly structured and traditional life. Some exceptions defy norms and still achieve success, but they're extremely rare. Those who try to follow their example often end up accomplishing nothing. Shibakusa then asks if he wants Risa to conform to societal norms so she doesn't end up like those outliers. Kadaoka confirms that's exactly what he wants. Shibakusa becomes enraged, demanding furiously if this isn't just a case of adults imposing their ideals on Risa. Hidetsugu asserts that he's not dictating Risa's path, and Shibakusa is idealistic. He warns Shibakusa that chasing a fleeting dream and deviating from the norm often leads to disastrous consequences. Despite many people being aware of this, some naive individuals still believe they'll be the exception, only to repeatedly fall into the same pitfalls. Kataoka emphasizes that success comes from consistently following a tried and tested approach. At first glance, it may seem unexciting, but the stability it provides more than makes up for it. When reflecting on their lives, those who never regret their choices are always the ones who built their lives methodically. Kataoka's words make Shibakusa reflect on his own life, and he struggles to argue against them. Kataoka then points out that Risa has already wasted time, skipping school, dyeing her hair, and getting piercings. He says studying abroad is a timely way for her to get back on track, especially with the new school year starting in September. Shibakusa disagrees and asks if Risa actually wants this. Kataoka replies that what Risa wants doesn't matter. What matters is that she learns to live the right way. Shibakusa becomes even more determined to change Kataoka's mind, believing there must be a better future for Risa. As he steps in, he sees the resignation on Risa's face. She looks trapped in a life that won't let her follow her passion for music. He realizes that if she follows her father's plans, she'll lose music completely, and the consequences could be devastating. He remembers her stating that she wanted to die, understanding now that it was a cry of despair over a life without music. Fueled by this thought, Shibakusa's anger erupts as he confronts Kataoka. His emotions run high, shocking both Risa and Narahara, who exchange uneasy glances, stunned by the intensity of his reaction.
Here I am, know it's been a while.